My name is Peter, recovered alcoholic. And everyone's at the workshop seminar, but the cool people are here. So this is awfully high. June 23rd, 1988 is when the loving God separated me from alcohol. I'm very grateful for this gift of sobriety. Thank the group for having me back and get to talk on the good news that was brought to me. I have a home group right down the road called No Problems, Just Solutions. We meet Wednesday night at 7:30. It's a little big book study that's become quite large and a lot of enthusiasm there. I'm grateful to be a member of that group. And I do have a sponsor. His name is Bob Azans. He lives in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I'm currently sponsoring 15 men. And God has me quite busy, way too much for my comfortability. But I remember a sponsor telling me, if you're looking for convenience, drop out of AA. It's not, doesn't work that way. Very often it's, the phone call comes in when I don't want to take it. Well, just Sunday, I had landed. It was a really long trip out to Oregon and a longer trip coming home, no sleep and a bunch of hotels and too many airplanes. And, I'm on my way home and the phone rings and it's a guy, a sponsor from out of state. And I don't want to take the call, but you say hello and, talk this guy down off the ledge until I got home. And I'm always better for it. Always better after the call than going in. So, I'm grateful where God has put me. I've shared this so many times. My separation from alcohol was not a day that I saw coming. It wasn't a day I planned on. I didn't say, well, starting tomorrow, I'm not going to drink anymore, and I'm going to go into treatment and do all the right things. I'm going to turn over a new leaf. I'm going to find the Lord. It wasn't like that at all, because the day before God got me sober, surrendered me on June 23rd of 88, I don't remember it. It was probably, most of it was a blackout, panhandling, and just doing the same old thing and hoping not to wake up the next morning. And so God gets in the middle of that when we're given the gift of desperation. And I've shared this so many times, and it's funny, around this time of year, as I get close to the 8th birthday, God kind of puts me in there and rehashes the whole thing all over again. And I think about the life I was living and the conditions I found myself in. It's remarkable that I'm here, like many of us. But this gift of desperation, it wasn't something I even asked for. I didn't even go to God and ask him to keep me from drinking anymore. It wasn't like that at all. But there was an opening. An interesting thing happened. So it's not only in while we're drinking, but even in sobriety, that we get negotiable when we hit desperation. Whether it's while I'm out there drinking or while I'm in here sober, to a point where I couldn't even put a thought together, much like tonight so far. And I don't have the ability to wallow in my own self-pity. I mean, there's nothing left. And there's a vacuum that's created where the ego gets even momentarily grinded into dust. There's nothing left. And in that place, I hear for the first time a voice, and I'm given a level of discernment on a spiritual plane for the first time in my life. I had no steps. I'm still drunk. I have no AA, but God cuts through all of that when the ego's grinded into dust for a moment. And I had nothing to do with it. I was just in so much pain. And I made a plea to this God who I still despise. I was very, very angry with God. But he doesn't care about that. He doesn't have to write an inventory at night or call his sponsor. It's like all love and no opposite. And even God's love I can't comprehend till I get to the other side. But I was in this place of a real awful pain. It wasn't only physical pain. It was emotional pain and soulful pain, if you will. There was nothing left. And that could happen to us, whether we're on Park Avenue or a park bench. I still have a family and 2 cars in the garage, or you're in an abandoned building like I was. The pain is the pain. And if you're new and you hear lots of speakers and you're having a trouble identifying with someone who's drunk and still employed, someone who's drunk and still has a family, listen to the end of the story. Their bottom, because we can saddle up to that in a minute. And my bottom was, for me, the worst bottom in the whole world because it was mine, as yours is. And I remember making a plea to God, who I despised and just very angry with, for giving me this life, this alcoholic, doping life, for taking my mom when I was too young. I was only 14, and give me a dad who's basically a gangster, and we don't identify with anything. We didn't get along. I was convinced my dad hated me until I got sober. So it was like the square peg in a round hole, and he did it. But something shifted, and it's a shift in perceptions that we'll get when we're out there that brings us in here, and we'll continue to have these little awakenings, sometimes big ones, while we're here. A clarity. You know, the carpenter says you have eyes, but you can't see. Is it good? Yeah. Check. Better? It's all. That's better? Okay. I'll start over. So... Is that better? 1, 2?
Yeah, that's good, right?
Is that good? Okay, good. Because I know you're writing everything I'm saying tonight. I know that. Carpenter said we have eyes, but we can't see. When I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, I can see what's in front of me, but I really can't see truth. Moreover, I can't see as maybe God would want me to see. I can't hear the way God wants me to hear. Therefore, my actions are full of me. And what God did in a brief moment for me was close the ears to the mind and open up the ears to the soul. I can't make that happen now with a lot of years sober. That's a divinely inspired, a divine intervention. When God sees one of his kids that banged up looking for help, things happen. And we all have our stories. I've heard enough stories over the years that can saddle up to that. And I made a plea to this God, and I landed my 7 treatment center. And I'm here tonight to talk about the good news that was brought to me. Not only the fellowship, which was a Band-Aid on an open wound, but the program inside this fellowship, which was really the soul food that I need, because I tried just going to meetings and I was Looney Tunes after 6 months. I was this close from a drink, and God got in the middle of that. Because left to my own power, I'm drunk. Alcoholism gets a life by taking mine. That's how it breeds. I'm the host, and it feeds off of me, you know. I have alcoholism, and I get recovered from alcoholism. It's not something that I have for the rest of my life, and I'm going to be suffering from the rest of my life. I can get recovered from this seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, but going to meetings is not going to treat that. Being a nice guy is not going to treat that. Making a meeting a day is not going to treat that. What I needed was some soul work, some inner work, some interior work, where God can get in there and rearrange everything. And the only way I found possible is by going through our big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps, which means it's going to challenge the heck out of me and make me really uncomfortable. The process of recovery is always removal. When we really examine the book, it's constantly removing and over and over and over again till there's basically nothing left, and then God could go to work. And so everything I came in here with had to go. As uncomfortable as it was, things I was clinging to, attachments to things that I thought were going to make me better, they walked right into AA with me, yeah? And after 7 treatment centers, I'm still not really clear of exactly what alcoholism is and how deep those roots go. I never knew that alcohol didn't come in a bottle of whiskey. I didn't know I can suffer from alcoholism without ever drinking. I didn't know I can die from alcoholism without ever putting a drink in me. I knew nothing about this. And a sponsor brought me through the book and pointed at the bedevilments on page 52, which was untreated alcoholism. I got to take a look at how many areas of my life am I still in denial with, whether it's money, food, my body, my job, my relationship. And as long as I'm attached to my mind, the biggest predator to hit the planet, as long as I'm attached to my mind, I will do whatever the mind tells me. And I start to settle for a lot of things. I settle for a relationship because I'm so afraid of being alone. I settle for only making this much money because I'm not worth making more money. I settle for buying this house or living in this town because I'm not really worth going there. And I settle, and I get more and more frustrated with God and with life. And when that spring gets really, really tight and breaks, I pick up a drink. So many of my problems are self-imposed. And then someone says, well, you need to get with God and turn that over to God. It's too much of an order. I'm not going through with that. God doesn't work quick enough. Yeah, God doesn't work quick enough. And the outcome may not be the way I want. I remember a sponsee brother went to my sponsor, Mark, when he was alive, and he was on really difficult times financially. And Mark says, give to charity. He said, well, I have very little. I'm not going to give to charity. He said, give to charity. It was in any lengths. Are you going to trust God or not? And the guy started giving to charity, and everything changed for him. He didn't get employed right away, but his outlook on life changed. And what I can do as an alcoholic, because I'm not okay, I want to change circumstances. And when circumstances get better, I feel better. Well, that's a no-brainer, but I'm still bringing me into the new circumstances, and God is somewhere else, which means no matter what I do, it's going to get ugly quick. If I'm untreated and come into a windfall of money, I take me into a higher tax bracket, and a short time when that money gets kind of stale, it's me stuck with me again. And I'm looking to blow my brains out to pick up a drink. It's me who's the problem. And I've been programmed and conditioned to point outwards to look at what's wrong with me and never, ever go inside and say, is it possible I need some sort of transformation, some sort of spiritual awakening, spiritual revolution, a change in me in order to navigate out there? Because I have to automatically assume that people, places, and things are not changing. If they'd only do this, I'd be better. Hold your breath. And here's the bad news, because even when they do change, I'm still dissatisfied. So some real humility comes in here when I show up to Alcoholics Anonymous and they present this program to me. And they talk about a God of their understanding that worked for them. And they talk about doing the steps and going to meetings and doing service and all of these things. And I see it working for you. But sometimes I still in a place of doubting, is it going to work for me? It has to work for me. If it doesn't work for me, I'm in serious, serious trouble. And there's humility born right there. Because I didn't walk in here saying, I'm going to do the steps and be Moses by Tuesday. I'm going to go through the steps and have the best fourth column margins you could imagine. I'm going to open up the third column. I'm going to start quoting the book and doing all of this stuff, and I will be a star in AA. I'll probably be drunk. This has to work for me. This is the last house on the block, which makes me really teachable and pay close attention to what everyone's saying, and I'm going to follow instructions when they're given to me. I'm not going to negotiate on it because there's nothing else, no other place to go to. But I first had to get really grounded in step one when I got here. I think I've shared this already. There's about 53 pages that talk about step one. It's that important. The rest of the stuff is broken up into paragraph and pages. But step one, I need to be on solid ground. In fact, if I don't really believe step one, if I still think I can control and moderate, I don't have to go to some of the any lengths that you people have to do. There's no way I'm doing step two. I'll check the box on step two. I'll check the box on step three. But there's no real shift. There's no willingness to be changed completely from the inside out. And as an alcoholic, I can come in here and say, listen, I want the bad things to go away, but I want to nurture the good things. And God said, it doesn't work that way. I'm taking the whole thing and remodeling it. It's not just about trimming off some dead leaves. It's uprooting the entire thing. A lot of us, maybe me being one of them, don't want to do that kind of upheaval. It's too painful. It's too uncomfortable. I want to hold on to what I know. I just want the pain to be removed. Even my conception of God was challenged when I got here too. At the beginning, it was a GOD, group of drunks who could only direction. And little by slowly, I start waking up to God. And my sponsor challenged me on that. He said to me, write out your own conception of God. Let's see what you got. That should be easy. My own conception of God, and pen went to paper, and I had none. I was praying to what my mom would pray to, or what my grandparents would pray to, or what the church told me to pray to. But it wasn't a personal relationship. I was using someone else's God. Now, that kept me buoyant for a while. But we talk about having a God that's personal to us. Someone I'm going to go to in adversity, and someone to give thanks when things are good. I had to get out of the way. And step 2 for me was to point her out. Step 2 was to point her out of all of this mess that I was in. So if I'm driving around in the forest and I have no GPS and the gas is going low and the headlights aren't working and I'm just driving in circles and I see lights up ahead, it's possibly a service station or a strip mall where there's people and I can get directions to find the highway, I'm heading that way. If not, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. I'm going to be stuck in the middle of nowhere with no gas. I don't know what to do. And step 2 was the light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't do much, but I'm willing to go there. Why? Because of the pain and desperation I experienced in step 1 and the step 0, getting in here. Some of us, I'm one of them, hit a second bottom in Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, it was bad enough out there. Now I'm sober. I have nothing to pour on my alcoholism. I'm acting out 100 different ways. Food became a serious issue. An eating disorder kind of grabbed me out of nowhere. And I'm going to meetings and pretending I'm okay and I'm not okay. I still had this internal thing going on. There was a lot of noise in the head. And one thing the mind does, it gives me a thought and throws a narrative behind it, and I believe it to be true. And here comes these different forms of self showing up. I gotta be this way, I gotta live there, I gotta have this, you should do this, and you should do that. And all these selves show up. Selves that God never created, but I believe them to be true because they're mine. If you gave me the same information and said, that's loony, man, don't pay attention to that. But they're mine, so they're true, and that's what gives it power. And down the rabbit hole I go. That's why we ask an alcoholic, how you doing? We're always tired. Well, you don't have a job, why are you tired? Well, I'm entertaining a whole lot of people up here. There's a Netflix mini-series going on, you know? I mean, I'm the alcoholic, man. I wake up at 5 o'clock, and at 5:01, I'm in an argument with somebody. Or you ever wake up angry? You just wake up, son of a, you know. There's no one in the house. She's sound asleep, but I'm fighting with people. That's something that happened 20 years ago. If they were here now, I would give, you know. Or I look into the future with the day, and I know how the day is going to go. And as soon as they start their nonsense, they're going to hear from me. It's 5:02. And in my mind, I'm really good. I'm like Clint Eastwood in Fistful of Dollars. I'm just like flawless, you know. And I really give them a piece of my mind on the inside. On the outside, I say, hi, how are you? How's everything? Step 3 is really the turning point. What I always like to take a look at, for there's a lot of us here have been around a while, what does step 3 look like currently? I've been through the steps, had a spiritual awakening. I'm working with lots of spiritual information, a lot of literature. Maybe we're back to our religious community, yeah? What does step 3 look like now? While I'm doing 10 and 11 and working with others in 12. Am I in a place of self-reliance when adversity hits? Do I really trust God in the dark? Am I really turning things over to God and being patient and just waiting on the sidelines for directions? Am I seeking counsel from a sponsor or perhaps other people saying, I'm not sure what to do about this? I think God's telling me go this way. I'm not sure. Am I even open to taking direction? Because very often, over the years, when God has given me instructions, it usually is in contrast to what I want to do. See, I like what God's will sounds like, and I like what God's will looks like. But when it comes to me, my will looks and sounds a little bit better today. It's a little quicker, and it serves me. And very often, God's will is about me being there for someone else. All love and no opposite. Am I willing to do that? Seeing a homeless person on the street, I have eyes, but I don't see. I see a homeless person and I step over them because they reek. They're not pleasant to look at. I don't see another child of God that could be me laying there. That's someone's son or daughter who lost their way. But I'm going to step over them. Then I'm going to come to an AA meeting and tell you how spiritual I am. I make a lot of money, perhaps. I give zero to charity. There was a pope, I think, 13th, 14th century. He says, once all your needs are met, the rest of your money goes to the poor. That raises the bar. Yeah. There's some homeless people I see down here in Boca. I see no one stopping and giving them money. That's a child of God. So what kind of third step do I really have? Because if I really turned it over to God and I did 4 through 9, there's a change in me where I'm seeing perhaps as God would see, and I'm hearing perhaps as God would hear, and I can't go past that person. I can't go by the newcomer who just walked in here is vibrating and saying, well, someone else will talk to them. I got to get home to watch the football game. It doesn't work that way anymore. We've been changed from the inside out. Because if I was the homeless person and God was walking by, he'd stop. And if there was a sick guy in here with one day back or a sick gal in here one day back and God showed up, he'd stay here till midnight with them. How come I can't do that? So really, where am I in this God place? I'm more interested in someone's walk than talk. Anyone can get up here and do a 12-step series. I have no idea what I'm doing, by the way. Anyone can do a 12-step series. It's what happens between, as they used to tell us, between the Lord's Prayer and the preamble. That's really when game on. How am I doing? So I had to take a look at my conceptions of God when I got here. And I had to write that out, and I shared it with my sponsor. As I said, he challenged me. And the third step said I made a decision to turn my will and life over to the care of God as I understood him currently at that moment. My thinking and my actions over to God. That's everything. If spirituality doesn't touch every single area of my life, it touches none of my life. I learned that one the hard way. I couldn't be a little spiritual here and something else out there. I couldn't be spiritual in here when I do my taxes, something else with the tax man or in Publix or on 95. It has to be consistent. I don't have the power to do that, but God could and would if he was sought. So what I did was, how it works, going through my sponsor, it says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. And he broke that down with me. Followed what path? A decision in 3 and 4 through 9. Rarely have we seen a person fail. Am I thoroughly following this path, or am I checking boxes? Where am I with this? I'm an alcoholic and cannot manage my own life. It tells me in the ABCs. That's drunk or sober. See, what my ego wants to do is I'm sober a few years and start to take over my life. I can manage it now. I'm a worker. I have a job. I have a relationship. Maybe I'm raising children. I just bought my first home. I'm doing pretty good. I can manage my life. And the book is clear that I'm not managerial quality. I can't manage my life drunk or sober. That's God's job. There was a speaker, first generation AA, this guy named Chuck C., and he said something like this. He says, my job is not to take care of myself, and it got my attention. My job is not to take care of myself. That's God's job. He'll do a much better job of it than I ever will. He says, my job as an alcoholic is to seek that power which is going to take care of me all along. See, when I'm doing if you think about it, when we're doing our steps, when I'm doing my steps, whether it's a 4th step or going out making amends or I'm reading the book, who's keeping me sober during that time? Who's moving me through step 4? Or if we're home, we have the flu and we can't make a meeting for a couple of days, who's keeping us sober? It's the power that's been present all along. And what AA allows me to do is wake up to it as I get removed, experiencing the depth of self for successful living. Less of me, more God, less of me. And little by slowly, as I start to practice this, my behavior changes. And I come in touch with something that struck very deeply in me, that my behavior is a direct reflection of the value that I put on my sobriety and my God. How am I doing when no one's around? What's it really look like? When I think no one's around? There's a gentleman I study, his name is James Finley. He says something like, how would you do if God was sitting next to you and followed you through your day? You knew he was right with you. God's going to shadow you today. Oh, baby, there's a lot of change going on today. The guy who cut me off, it's okay, it's quite fine, when God's there. Other than that, I'm chasing him down 95. What does that look like? So I took a look at step 3, and we look at the third step prayer. My sponsor had me write out the third step prayer word for word. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. This is language I'm not accustomed to speaking. So what he had me do next to that, after I wrote it out word for word as it appears in the big book, is write out what the prayer means to me in my language. What does God, I offer myself to thee mean to me? When I study that, I realize I'm going to God and ask him to take me like the wreckage of me and fix it. And how he does it is none of my business. One of the prayers I work with, as recent as this morning, is, God, I'll go where you want me to go, I'll do what you want me to do, and I'll say what you want me to say. I will live for you, and I will die for you. That's for me. That's me telling my God, I stand in the batter's box ready. I'm not going to talk a good talk and not do what I'm supposed to do. So I look at the third step prayer. Take me like the wretch I am. Whatever it is, good and bad, I needed to be remodeled. Okay. Sorry about that. It's not you. Sounds good? Okay. In our big book, on page 62, it talks about what I'm up against. It says selfishness and self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. I'm driven by 100 forms of fear, self-seeking and self-pity. I step on the toes of my fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt me without provocation, but I invariably find that sometime in the past I made a decision based on me, which put me in a position to be hurt. Then it says troubles are of my own making. It says nothing about alcohol. It's all about the selfish, self-centered, self-seeking. It's the me. It's the different forms of self. And that the unmanageability is never out there. The unmanageability is always an internal condition. What am I going to do about this? Because meetings alone for a guy like me is not going to treat that. I'll get some good information, but I'm going to lack a transformation. I needed God to go in there and rearrange stuff. I'm an alcohol, can't manage my own life. Probably no human power could relieve me of my alcoholism. I experimented with the human power in other things like money, property, prestige, relationship, no relationship, job, no job, a new job, a better job. I'm still drunk and kept getting fired. God could and would if he was sought. I start seeking out God, and I can tell you it's like God can and has. I've come to experience that. And so I remember going to my sponsor's house and sitting down doing a third step with him. And he explained to me that although this decision was vital, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and to be rid of the things that are blocking me from God. The way I'm going to really do this third step, because it's just a decision, is by taking some action in 4 through 9. Well, I had to take a look at my past, examine it, discuss it, and get free of my past. Because if I still live in the past, I'm looking at my future. Nothing's going to change. If I still live in the past, if I'm still attached to the past, if I'm still operating out of the past, I'm looking at my future. And I'm going to be doing it sober for a while, which makes it even more painful. Because nothing has changed. And so I went to my sponsor's house and we sat down and did a third step prayer. It was interesting because I didn't know what to expect, let alone walking into this guy who's kind of a roughneck and he had candles burning. It made me a little uncomfortable. And the lights were kind of dimly lit. I didn't know what I was getting into. I almost paled. And we went to the center of the living room, and he said, let's get on our knees. And then he held my hands, and he closed his eyes. I kept one eye open, just in case. And he held my hands, and I was a nervous wreck. I make light of it. It was actually a beautiful moment. That this tough guy can be that delicate and that understanding. And he knew how important this decision was for me to make. Because he was loaded for bear, because as soon as I got up off my knees, we went to his kitchen table, and he hit me with step 4. He didn't say, now work on the third step for the next 2 years. Read it every day to 12 and 12. If that works for you, I'm not here to change it. But it's not what the book says. And so we held hands, and I'm vibrating, and he basically said the third step prayer. I was following him. I forgot it. I was so nervous. God, I offer myself to thee. And we got done with it, and he pointed out to me that there's no amen at the end of the third step, which is interesting. Most prayers end with an amen. There was no amen at the end of the third step prayer. And he says, because we're going to go in. It's a body of work that has not been completed yet. So there's an opening, and we're about to go in with God's care and God's management to go look into that dark room that we're always afraid to go into, or that dingy, dank basement in the house that you're always afraid to go into, or the attic. And God's going to turn on the light and point out to you, to me, what's in the way. Some of the things he's going to push aside. Some of them he's going to say have to go. I would never do it alone. And even further, he was going to walk in first, and I was going to stand behind him. So I did a self-examination for the very first time in my life. And the way I did step 3 was 4 through 9. Because it says next. We launched out a course of vigorous action, next, which means right now. So when we got done with the third step, I went to his kitchen table, and we opened up the book, and he told me write a master list, and I began step 4. Currently with step 3, there's a lot of things that have happened since I've been sober. Some wonderful things, overall wonderful. But challenges, life challenges, financial challenges, back up against the wall challenges. How am I going to pay my rent challenges, health challenges, people passing challenges, losing my dad a few years ago, watching him get sick and going to Texas to do a talk and winding up in the ER for 3 days. What was it called? AFib thing, whatever that is. I had that. And then I had to go for surgery to fix that. It's scary as heck. Because if you described AFib to me, I said, you'll be fine. But when it's mine, oh my God, I'm going to die. It's a minor surgery. When you get it, when I get it, it's major. And I had to really take a look at where I am with God. And here's what happened to me, just a quick story about turning this over to God. So I get to the hospital here in Fort Lauderdale, and they're going to do this AFib surgery. They're going to do some heart work on me. And they says, oh, it's nothing done all the time. I said, yeah, but it's my heart. You know, it takes one mistake and then I'm a memory. So I'm a little nervous. And the anesthesiologist, this guy comes over and he's talking to me and he says, you're a friend of Bill's. So he was a friend of Bill. I started to breathe better. This was great. And so I go in there and they do what they do, and I come out, and I'm a little groggy, and I had some other complications post-surgery. And I was supposed to leave after about 4 hours, but something went awry. They said, we can't make you leave. I had to stay overnight again. And I was in just the worst pain. It didn't have to do with the heart, another part of my body, and just awful pain. I couldn't move. And my wife, I said, I can't even lay in the bed. I can't move. And I'm waiting for the doctor to call in to give me some pain meds, something. And I'm in this chair, and I can't even recline it because any movement, I want to scream with so much pain. And Marion fell asleep, and I'm not sleeping. And I had my chair parked by, sitting by the window, and I can looking out into the courtyard. And it was kind of a full moon that night. And so what do? Acceptance and pray to God. I was asking for courage because I was petrified. And I'm saying, this is what getting old looks like. I had myself 100 and dead. So I needed some courage. I needed some better level of discernment, and I needed to go to God. So I sat by this windowsill, and I'm in repetitive prayer over and over. I must have said the Lord's Prayer about 100 times. And I'm having a conversation with God, and I'm just looking at the moon. And an interesting thing happened to me. My wife was sound asleep. It was really quiet in the wing I was in. And I found in that some solace. I found a resting place. And I was really okay, because the realization that God's going to take care of me, it's going to be in an hour or two, a couple hours, but I'm going to be okay, because God had his hands on me, that there was more work to be done. And I found some okayness in a very difficult thing, and I was just churning it over. God, I'm offering this to you. I don't have to tell him the pain I'm in, he knows. And there was something very tranquil about the whole thing, which makes absolutely no sense. But since when does God make sense? To my mind, God makes absolutely no sense. This whole thing called AA doesn't make sense. But in God's realm, it makes perfect sense. And that's what I did. And eventually the sun came up. The doctor came in. He was very upset about what happened and why I was in this position. And they fixed what they had to fix. In a few hours, I was home. And I felt really close to my God. So for me, this third step isn't a one-time deal and then you're out. And I start pontificating about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, how hard I've worked for my recovery, right? It's about my relationship with this power called God. And it has enhanced, really, what 10 and 11 looks like for me. Because for me, when I'm praying, is I'm not just offering words, because I don't have the power to command the Spirit to do anything. It's about me getting right. My prayers are centering to get ready for God to change me. I don't change me, he does. I'm clear of that. So my prayers are just offering to get me centered. And what I'm doing that day is I'm turning my whole day over to God. Who I meet, where I go, what I say, and I sometimes fail miserably at it. But I'm still getting up and, okay, God, let me fulfill your will today. Even if it makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to get on like 45 planes to get to Oregon today. You know, I don't want to sleep in 4 hotel rooms over the next 5 days. I don't want to do that. But those are the marching orders. So, okay, come with me. Same thing when I do a little local meeting like this, or it's a big conference. I don't just show up. I have like 4 hours of fasting. Yeah, I don't eat anything. And in my prayer meditation time, I pray for the conference, everyone's attending, or even a local meeting, that God gets them there safe, gets them home safe, let them have an open mind and give them all the healing they need. Kind of, if you will, for lack of a better term, let me, through God, anoint that place I'm about to go to. So it's a oneness rather than separateness. I even pray for when I get to the airport, bless the people who are flying that plane. I'm going to be in touch with them. And let me carry the vision of your will into those activities. Not just when I walk into a conference, oh, Pete's here, so now I got to levitate. It should be ongoing. And when I get home tonight and I pray, I'll thank God for all of this. For being with the cool people tonight. My third step has, I only have a few more minutes here. My third step has changed. As it for me ought to, as we awaken and we experience, we have new experiences, and we're exposed to different literature, more spiritual literature, and we're working with people, we hear their stories, and more is required. Sometimes even a bigger effort is required, and sometimes little effort is required. But my conception of God has changed, and looking at this third step has changed a whole bunch for me. I feel closer rather than, it's kind of like this. The more spiritually fit I am, I don't feel apart from God, but I feel more of a part of God, if you follow that. So, what our book tells us, on page 62, it says, this is the how and why of it. First, I had to quit playing God. This is what they're talking about as far as turning it over. They're going to tell us what to do on how to turn it over. which is going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We had to quit playing God. It didn't work. That's something I went past for years. That little sentence, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. I just kept reading all along. And my sponsor stopped me, stop right there. How many areas of your life are you aware of playing God? And how many areas of your life, maybe you're not aware you're playing God? And why do we have to quit playing God? Because it didn't work. And my experience abundantly confirms that. How many areas in my life, whether it's in my home life, you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and how come that's not done, and how come, I'm playing God. My home group, maybe they decide to switch to chairs and they didn't send me a memo, and I'm furious. Who did this? I'm playing God. How the world should operate, I'm playing God. With my own life, I ought to be here. The thing about that is the things I think should be a certain way according to me might be the very things that are going to hurt me. I'm not open to God anymore. I get on this horse and I start to ride towards the destination I think I'm supposed to be going, and it's the exact destination that's taking me further and further away from God. My sponsor said it best. He quoted Thomas Merton. I put the ladder against the wall and climbed the corporate ladder. When I get to the top, I find out I'm against the wrong wall. Yeah. So this third step can be the beginning of abundance, spiritually speaking, and it could be a nightmare. Abundance if I do it, a nightmare if I don't, because I'm just going to go back to doing what I always did anymore. I make a prayer and I just go back to operating the way I did in self-reliance. And if I'm in self-reliance, if you picture a clock on the wall, and at 12 o'clock I have self-reliance, at 3 o'clock I have fear, at 6 o'clock I have current agnosticism, and at 9 o'clock I have unmanageability. That's me running my life. And one begets the other. You can start any way you want. And I'm in this cycle of untreated alcoholism, wondering when is it going to get better? And I insist on going it alone because my mind will protest anything spiritual. It protests against God. It protests against his book. It protests against the meeting. That's his job. And when I hit the wall and run out of road, I start to listen to another voice. So I try to go through the steps once a year, no more than every 2 years. I won't go more than that. And I take a look at where I am with step 3. Currently, what's it look like now? Next week when we get here, God willing, we'll see how the third step is basically just a nice prayer and nothing else unless I do the fourth step. That's how I carry out this decision. And we'll hopefully talk about how this pen becomes a spiritual translator when we're doing a fourth step. The stuff I'm putting on paper that I will go, oh my God, I forgot all about that. And some of the insight we'll get is not coming from me, but it's coming to me. We start to see things happen. When our book says we're prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle, I'm kind of lifted up and looking over my life, surveying my life and saying, no wonder why. It's been running the show for a long time and I'm done. So that's all I got, guys. Peace.
Recovery inspiration is sitting right there waiting for you. Rocketed.org AA speaker recordings brings real voices and real stories straight to your ears. Subscribe now so you never miss a new recording dropping. Keep that motivation on tap and help spread the word. Hit subscribe and let recovery find you every single day.